All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Essential Skill Workshop 2020. This is workshop number 7 of the year. It's July right now. And the topic of today is the formula for giving life-changing feedback. Yeah, it's a very interesting topic. So how many of you would like to know how to communicate well and be able to give life-changing feedback? Yeah. So first and foremost, let me introduce this program. Welcome you to the Essential Skill Workshop brought to you by IMU, Industrial Partnership and Career Development Unit, in partnership with Caliber Business Solutions. So we are the training company here, and we are here to bring to you the workshop month to month. Yeah. So today the topic is the formula for giving life-changing feedback, and we have today trainer, speaker Marilyn Yim, who is a corporate trainer, facilitator, and coach, who believes in helping young leaders excel in their personal growth and development and in a constant evolving business environment. Yeah. So in the past 10 years, he has been conducting training workshops for over 5,000 employees throughout 8 cities globally. So without further ado, I'll pass on to Marilyn for her to introduce herself even more. So I will give herself a big round of applause to Marilyn Yim.
All right, thank you very much, and a round of applause to yourselves. You're gonna stay awake. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It's July, the second half of 2022. Very happy to be here with you. Thank you so much for the invitation. All right, so let's get started. As Ha mentioned, we've got a lot of ground to cover, and I really would love this to be as interactive as possible. Would love for you to share your questions, whether it's in the chat from time to time. Give me some reactions. You can, find the emoticons on the side. I trust that everybody now is a pro at Zoom for the most part. Okay, so yeah, so if your friends here, your colleagues, your fellow students here say something, give them some word of encouragement so that we make it as interactive as possible. Okay, all right. So very good afternoon to you, and I trust that you can share you can see my screen. Okay, good to be with you here today to speak about a very key life skill. So this topic is actually very, very close to my heart because this is how we grow, right? When we get feedback. So let me do a little bit of introduction about myself. Thanks, Ha, for introducing me. I am Marilyn, and I am a corporate trainer. So my day job is to work with senior managers in corporate companies, such as BASF. You may have heard of companies like that before. Roche, Guardian, Taylor's College, Kumuten, some e-commerce companies, and I've also worked with brands like Tiffany & Co, for those of you who like luxury stuff, okay, Bonia, Braun Buffel, and Parkson, so some brands you may be familiar with. Okay, so essentially my job is to help important corporations to work on their key communication, people, and leadership skills. And I'm also author of The Little Black Heart. So if you see my book out there, it's a little gifting book. It's all about growth, which is the topic that I'm passionate about. Okay, so we're going to get started, and feel free to ask me questions along the way. All right, so obviously we grew up in different generations, right? You and me. Okay, my generation, of course, the XY, I am borderline Y generation. So if I'm politically correct, I will say X, but then if I'm hanging around young people like you, I'll say Y. Okay, so we generally still follow the spoken word of our predecessors. What does that mean? So from the time that I started work in 1998, that's why you see the Twin Towers here, that was an important year because some of you may not have been born yet, okay? To the next 24 years, meaning from then until now, 2022, the way we work has obviously changed a lot, yeah? And also in the last 2 years. But the thing is, key communication skills still remain very, very relevant. Okay, and for the next 10 years, for the next 20 years, you guys will be emerging. And as you immerse yourself into the workforce, your voice will grow stronger, hopefully, increasingly, okay, so that you can use your talent. So how so? So even though you are, starting out now, and you may feel that you are the junior, you're the student, the incoming, and there will be a hierarchy in which when you start to work, you will feel that you may be a nobody. But you all know that we live in an evolving norm, right? So what do we mean by evolving norm? We are such a connected world today with social media, right? You get to express yourself differently. You get to exchange ideas with increased connectivity. And the people of your generation have now the ability to participate, the ability to question, to challenge. And all this is actually inside each and every one of you just because of the environment that you're in and the times that you grew up in. Okay, and because you have this privilege of exercising this freedom of expression, this voice, and these tools, I would also want you to consider how you can use your voice to then give feedback in the right way. And we will also talk about why that's important as we go along. Okay, why is it important? You see, many adults actually in the work sector that I've been training. So, like I said, I work with senior managers. I sometimes work with small companies, the business owners as well. They find it very difficult to give feedback. Why is that? We live in Malaysia, right? So, firstly, Asian values, respect for elders. So, in general, when we're younger, we find that we have a very muted voice. Yeah, it only dawned on me this morning. I mean, despite being a leadership coach, I know, right, how important children are, how important growth is about. But it just dawned on me this morning, wow, every time I scold my children, it's almost as though I believe that they are not entitled to their opinion. Okay, so despite being a coach, these opinions sort of hold firm in people in general. All right, so despite being very, very encouraging towards the younger generation, you will find that um, as you grow into the workforce and you start to work with doctors, you start to work with medical professionals, you start to work with corporate people, customers who will be older than you may find, oh, actually, not so easy to express myself and not so easy to have a voice. Okay, so if you want to make a difference in the workplace, you will have to break through these beliefs by being courageous to change the status quo, to grow your leadership skills of doing the right thing rather than doing things right. So that's actually a key leadership difference. Yeah? Do we do things right as we follow procedures, we step by step, we follow the book, or do we learn to do the right thing? And sometimes doing the right thing is not always easy. Okay, so through your hard work, your research, and your keen observation skills, we're going to encourage you to show off your credibility, right? And especially to people, your seniors who are around you who are indifferent to you. Okay, we want you to start to become invaluable. Why do I use the word indifferent? Okay, I'm actually going to put a link in the chat. You can do this now or you can do this later. Okay, obviously, maybe later would be a better thing. It is actually a calculation of the world population. All right, so did you know that the world population changes repetitively? I mean, it keeps changing. So every second, if you were to click on this link, right, you'll see the population there, 7.9 billion people in the world. Okay, and you will also see how many births there are every second, how many deaths are there every second, what is the population growth every second. That's why I use the word indifference. Okay, because by the time you are all full-fledged medical practitioners, your clients, your customers, your patients, your staff too will have developed their own voice. And with all this easy access to research, they also will become more vocal, right? Indifference because if you look at this live calculator that you can either test now or later, because of the 7.9 billion people in the world, research has actually shown that people in general are indifferent to other people. Okay? Indifferent meaning to say they don't really care who you are, what you do, what you say, and what opinion you have. And therefore, if you want your voice to count, your opinion and your value to show up, right? You need to start ramping up your people skills and start being very, very observant from today already. Okay, so far so good? Okay, so just give me some feedback if I'm going too fast, if you want me to slow down, all right? And then if not, I'll just keep going on. Thank you, Joyce, for your feedback. Okay, so because there are 7.9 billion people in the world, and the world is so very noisy, right? So you've got all the social media, you get home, you're playing games online, there's just noise everywhere, right? So don't assume at the workplace, when you get into the workplace, that people will listen to you and that trust is built instantly, right? Because communication lines are not always smooth. So it has not happened in the last 20 years when I've been working. It has not been happening in the last many, many decades or even centuries to come. So there's no template to smooth communication, but we can only learn how to communicate. All right. However, that is why we need to learn to have the courage of being able to give feedback at the right time, in the right manner, at the right place, with the right people, and with the right relevance, all right? Because feedback is actually priceless and it can be life-changing, right? If you give feedback to somebody else, it can be life-changing for them as a person. Why do I say that? Because most of the time, people are indifferent to each other. So when somebody makes mistakes or somebody has a blind spot, most of the time, other people do not give them feedback. Yeah, they are shy to give them feedback. Where in the Asian culture, we just say, never mind, never mind, let it be, right? That person will figure it out on their own. So if you can grow your courage and you can learn the value of giving feedback, people will start to sit up and they will sit up and start to listen. And they'll say, hey, you know, what I'm dealing with and who I'm dealing with is a thinking, acting, feeling person who takes accountability, which is why you do give feedback. And if you give feedback to the recipient, they will grow. And trust me, you as a leader will also start to grow. Okay, so we're going to talk about what is feedback then. So tell me, what is feedback to you? So when you sign up for this workshop, right, what do you have in mind? What does feedback mean to you? What is it actually about?
Hi, Marilyn.
Hi, Grace.
Hi. I think feedback is something we say in response to something that people have done.
So in response to something people has done. Yeah, absolutely. So is it your reaction then to it?
I guess so, yes.
Okay, so it's what you see, what you interpret on something that they have done, whether it's a behavior, a facial expression, a gesture, the way they said something, and it's then your reaction, your response to their behavior. Yeah, that's very good. Thank you, Grace, for that. Okay, feedback. What else is feedback to the rest of you? You can put it in the chat as well, or you can unmute. You can say one word also is fine. Just want you to get thinking. What is feedback? Yes, Estella. Yes, please.
Hello.
Hi.
I guess feedback can also be a form of agreed upon sort of evaluation from someone else, like a mentor-mentee kind of situation.
Yeah. Okay. So in which case you mean that it's probably there's a consensus, there's an agreement, an upfront agreement that, you know, whatever we do between mentor-mentee, we agreed to share information and to communicate. Yeah. And therefore that could also be feedback. Thank you very much. Very nice. Yeah. What else could feedback be to you? Let's see something in the chat. Reflection based on the performance. Yes, thank you, Jing Xuan. So it could be reflection. Could it be feedback on yourself? Have you ever practiced giving feedback to yourself before or not? Like that reflection. Yeah. Okay, so it could be feedback from other people. Yeah. So actually, in a sense, it is two-way, right? It's an analysis. Thank you, Priya. That's a nice one. You think back and you go, what went right? What went wrong? Okay, what can be better? And that is the basis of feedback, right? Because there's always a better way of doing things. So whether it's about giving information about a loophole, a procedure gone wrong, an SOP that was not followed, or someone was doing things unfavorably, okay, that is feedback, right? But what about things that you're doing right? Can it be about good things or not? Can feedback be about good things? Give me a thumbs up if it's a yes. Or must feedback only be about things that people have done wrong? Thank you, Estella. Thank you, Grace. Thank you, Joyce. Yeah, feedback can be about good things too, right? The danger, thank you, Jing Xuan, the danger is that whenever we hear the word feedback, right, especially in corporate world, you haven't gone to corporate world yet, people will say, ayo, feedback must be bad. So imagine you're just going to work innocently one day, minding your own business, having a happy day, and then your boss calls you. Hao Yin, Vanessa, come to my room. I want to give you feedback. Wow, how do you feel? Scared or not? Scared or not? What's going on through your mind, right? Because suddenly you associate feedback with something that is difficult, that is wrong, that I've done wrong. You start to blame yourself, you start to critique yourself, you start being defensive. And that is actually the very reason why a lot of people don't give feedback in corporate Malaysia. Okay, so let's take a look at the definition of feedback, which is, as you guys said, direct constructive communication. Notice this is two-way communication, right? It's about somebody's performance. It's about their behaviors, things that they did, things that they said, things that they that impacted somebody else. But it can certainly include both positive as well as things to improve, two aspects. All right, so I want you to remember this, that always remember that feedback can be about doing good things too. Okay, so imagine this, right? You do a really great job, either in your project or you've completed a certain task, and then somebody says to you, hey, good job, good job. Of course, it feels good, right, to be patted on the back and to be said, well done. But actually, if you think about it, right, what did you do a good job for? Do you know or not? Right? Why did this lecturer tell me, well done? What exactly did I do right? What exactly was well done? Do I exactly know? Because if there is no clarity in exactly what has gone right, then we are not able to repeat that behavior. Why do I say that? Because I'm sure that all of you, everybody, goes to work, goes to school, goes to do whatever they do, expecting to do a good job. Don't you think so? Yeah? Right? So none of us wake up in the morning and say, I want to do a bad job today. I want to make sure it's terrible, I get a bad outcome. None of us do that, right? We may indirectly impose our scared feelings onto and create a bad outcome, but none of us have the intention to create a bad outcome. Okay, so that is why I say good job as feedback may not actually be good enough. Okay, because we want to be very crystal clear, because at the end of the day, feedback is about things that we want to continue doing if it's good, and we want to improve if it wasn't so good. Okay, and I will be giving you the formula of how you can actually put the feedback into a proper structure so that it goes across very clearly, that the other person understands what it's about and are able to replicate the good behavior or are able to correct the things that are done wrongly. Okay, so as you know, and as we've all said here, feedback is two ways. There is a giver and there is a receiver. So it actually involves two parties, which is why it gets complicated sometimes. So let's talk first about the recipient, meaning to say the person receiving the feedback. Okay, so we're talking about the person receiving the feedback. Let me ask you, what is some of the feedback? You know, it can be funny, it doesn't have to be related to school or to work. It can be, you know, just feedback in general that you've received in the past. Okay, so give me some feedback now. What feedback have you gotten before? Where have you gotten feedback from? Who gives you the feedback? Okay, so I'll start you off. I was walking my dog the other day. Okay, actually a bit scared because the week ago, my dog, actually we accidentally let him out the gate and he sort of bit the neighbor, all right? Bit the neighbor, which was not a very nice thing. Yeah, so we were very sorry. We sent, you know, a food basket. We offered to bring her to the hospital and all that. So, okay, that was past. Okay, we've rectified that. Neighbor has forgiven us. But the week after, I was walking my dog again. Okay, and I walked past my daughter's piano teacher, and then she goes out of the blue, "Hey, Marilyn, you're very fair nowadays." So I'm just looking at her, and I don't know how to respond to that. So she gave me feedback, but I didn't know what to do with that feedback. So I'm very fair now. Is it because I've been indoors? You know, did I change my face cream? I don't know what she meant. Zero clarity. Okay, so what is some feedback that you have gotten in the past? Let's see what's in chat. On assignments, okay, yeah. Okay, and what were the things that were said to you? So in class, it's the assignments, yeah? Okay. What else? How about from your friends? How about from your family? How about from relatives? Ever got any feedback on it?
Hi, Marlene.
Hi, Najwa.
Can I say something?
Yes, please.
So, a lot of friends, like colleagues or family, they like to comment on how we look like like I don't know, like Malay. They always like, I think you gain weight. Those kind of
Yeah.
comments.
Yeah, kan? I don't know why, right? Yes, that seems to be like a popular thing for them to say, then you grew taller, they'll say you grew taller, you're too short, they'll say you're too short. Everything, just comments about the body, right? Yeah. Okay, thank you, Najwa. What else? How about anyone else? What other feedback have you received? And who gave you that feedback? Friends, why are you still single? Oh my goodness. Yes. So Priya, you have to brace yourself. I think this question can go on for very, very, touch wood, right? Or whatever. Well, it's your choice, right? So that's right. Why do they say that? I have friends who are single and yeah, they get it all the time. And unfortunately, right, we being in this community, we sometimes also think that way. So while we are voicing these out, sometimes I also say, yeah, but I also ask that question also, so we have to be careful. Absolutely. Yeah. So these are some little feedback you get from people. Okay. And I'm sure all of you have gotten some feedback. Okay. So think about it and think back to your experience. Was the feedback relevant? Was the feedback helpful in any way? And more importantly, did you know what to do with that feedback after that? Okay, so if the answer is no, then feedback may not have been very helpful, very useful. Okay, so we're just setting the scene here. Okay, so this is based on you as the receiver of the feedback. All right, now let's swap sides. Now I'm going to put you in the shoes of the person who gives feedback. So who have you given feedback to? Okay, number one question is, who have you given feedback to? Right? Anybody? Got or not?
Yes. During Toastmasters, during the evaluation,
Yes.
there's always this feedback that you have to give your fellow Toastmasters.
Very good. And that's very constructive feedback, right, Grace? How does it go normally? There's a structure.
Yes, there is. And there is something called the sandwich structure, whereby you go something positive, something negative, and then something positive again. So you end on a good note.
Nice. Okay. And I'm sure the end on the good note has some legs to it as to then they leave knowing what to do with it after that, right?
Yep.
Okay, very nice. So you also cushion the so-called fall, you cushion the pain of receiving that feedback by starting with the positive. That's why you said the sandwich. Yeah. And then in between is where the constructive part comes in. Okay. Yeah. That's nice. You see, because in associations like Toastmasters, it is expected. So we had a contract up front, that when you are going to deliver your speech, Toastmasters is about public speaking, right? That you will get feedback. And therefore, hopefully the receiver will be more receptive to receiving that feedback because they're prepared for it. Whereas in a day-to-day basis, normally people are not always prepared to receive, right? So when you last gave feedback, whoever you gave feedback to, what was the response like? Any of you had an experience where you gave feedback and the person, slammed the table, storm off, or maybe turn back to you and scolded you back? Any one of you had any scary experiences like that? Estella is thinking very hard, right? Yeah. So, yes, please, Estella, please share.
Sorry, I was thinking about the the teaching method of giving 2 stars and a wish. This is mainly for primary school teaching. So when you mark a piece of work,
Yeah.
you give them 2 stars and a wish.
Yeah. Is that...
I was teaching high school, and we would tend to kind of do that as well, give them good feedback and also negative feedback, what they can sort of improve on. And some of my students like to focus on the the negative feedback. I think we all do as human beings. And then they would get quite upset with me.
Okay.
So that was a bit difficult.
Okay, so you're saying that despite the fact that you gave some good feedback too, they hang on and they cling on to the negative portion of it.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. And then you don't know what they do, and they put it and take it and put it in their minds, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
yeah, and that it might affect them mentally, might affect them in a way that they get stressed out over, where all you had was, at the back of it, Estella, I'm sure it was good intention, right?
Yes, yes, of course.
Yeah. And what was the
We're
purpose
trying
of it?
to, yeah, we're trying to help them improve, but it's a bit difficult emotionally. And then all sorts of resentment arises, and then they might start hating you and so on.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, because it's hard to hear the truth or something. It's hard to hear about something that you did wrong or not necessarily well, because it attacks the ego. So that is also very, very important to bear in mind. And just based on what Estella said about the 2 stars, there's a topic, but we're not covering it today. Whales, giant killer whales, in Sea Park, I don't exactly remember where, but they train these whales to do shows, right? In SeaWorld. So how do you train a huge whale to follow your instruction? You can't bring out your rotan, right? So in my generation, we have rotan. Okay, I get rotan, and okay, I won't answer back anymore. I'll just follow the rules. Today we don't use rotan. Okay, maybe some of you still do, but that's fine. It's your choice. But with a whale, you will not, because they're so strong. They will actually, come back and jump on you, and there's no way you can fight a huge killer whale. So how do they do that? They give what we call positive reinforcement. So if they've done something right, they give them a little pat, a little touch. The trainers do that. Of course, they have built a relationship. But if they do something wrong, what they do is they redirect. So you cannot scold a killer whale, you can't rotan. So they redirect, as in they take the attention away from the thing that's done wrong, and then they bring them back to focus on something positive. Yeah, so it's interesting how you different ways to give feedback, and importantly, now I want you to think about some of the feedback you've given before, right? What was the response? Why was that response happening? And also to think forward, who do you need to give feedback to? So for some of you, it could be your housemates. For some of you, it could be your siblings. For some of you, it could be your family members. For some of you, it could be your colleagues. And for some of you, it could be also your superiors, in which case it gets a bit more scary. Okay? So let's go deeper into the topic, all right? And to just explore. So yeah, most of us, I especially too, was afraid to give feedback and to even ask or to receive for feedback in the past. Okay, why? Why we don't easily give or receive feedback? Again, because of all the beliefs that we've had. Yeah, the beliefs that we cannot speak up, the belief that we will make that person feel uncomfortable. So I would rather just avoid the topic altogether. And at the same time, when it's so difficult already to give feedback, I was also afraid to ask for feedback. So here's the key, right? If you're going to make yourself valuable at the workplace, it's very, very important that you also learn and schedule in asking for feedback, because the feedback giver is not easy for them to give feedback. So if it's not easy to give feedback, and if you don't ask for it, people may just avoid it. And what happens then? It's a lose-lose situation. Okay, so this is something to consider. Now, why is it so difficult to give feedback? Yeah, we would rather be in this illusion of happiness. Happiness, by happiness, I mean if it's safer, that we don't step on anybody's toes, I am in my comfort zone, or I would rather be in this situation where I feel accepted and therefore I don't give feedback. I also don't ask for feedback because if I ask, yeah, as Ha mentioned, it tends to be negative, right? So if I want to grow then, and if I really am doing something that needs improvement, if there's absence of feedback, what will happen? I'm actually avoiding my own progress and growth, isn't it? Yeah. So over here, I would not be getting the best and working to the best of my potential. Yeah, and that's what actually happened to me. So in my 20 years of working, I've had a really good career, by the way. I worked at the Mandarin Oriental first, the five-star hotel in 98. And then subsequently, I worked with the FJ Benjamin Group, which is the retail company. So all the while, I had been growing in my career. Somehow I was good enough, with my people, my bosses. Every job I took was a recommendation from my previous boss. So somehow the bosses just liked me. Somehow my colleagues just liked me. So I was actually very safe, very comfortable, and happy at work, right? So for the last 15 years or so, I would just do my thing. I was a good worker. I was a hard worker. I had good attitude. I wouldn't answer back. I never spoke up at meetings. It was only then when I joined this company, this Tan Sri, who was in the board meeting, asked me, Marilyn, do you have anything to chip in? Now, that time I was new and I said, no, Tan Sri, actually, I've got nothing to say today. Let me observe a little bit and I'll come back to you the next board meeting. Okay, and so it went. Every board meeting, he would say, so Marilyn, do you have anything to chip in? And every time I would give myself excuses not to give any feedback because I was too shy to, and I was too comfortable in that acceptance zone. It was only 7 years later, 7 years, that when I was grooming a group of high potentials, younger high potentials, executives who were going to become managers. And they said, Marilyn, can you mentor them? Can you groom them, teach them to be leaders? And I said, sure. And when I saw their presentations, they were so dynamic that I asked myself, how come I'm not like them? I'm mentoring them more like they're better than me, right? So I realized then, and I started to question myself, how come I didn't grow? And it was only then that I looked back and I realized as I became a trainer, I started training leadership skills, that I said, you know what? It was actually the accountability, my accountability to have asked for feedback. And it was my accountability to step up, to grow, to achieve progress. And if there was something that I was afraid of, I should be asking for it. And at the same time, I reflected back on my bosses and said, but if I was so quiet and I was so scared at meetings, how come they never gave me feedback? And that's what I mean by life changing. Because if I look back now, and if I had been given the feedback that 7 years ago, that 10 years ago, that 15 years ago, I may actually be a very different person, a more outspoken, a more courageous person. And what happens as a result if you're more courageous? You get to put your ideas on the table, right? And if you put your ideas on the table and your ideas are great, ultimately somebody is going to benefit, whether it is your colleagues, or it could be your customer, or the company can save more money, right? Save more costs, become more efficient, because surely my ideas cultivated in 20 years would have been good. But because no one gave me feedback that I was too quiet, I was too mousy. And therefore, that's where I left my corporate career. Everyone still liked me. I was still the nice person, great attitude. But when I look back and I said, oh my goodness, I wasted a whole chance to develop myself. Okay. But thankfully, because I got thrown into working for myself like I do today, when you work for yourself, you have no choice but to learn, right? Because if you don't learn, you get left behind. Yeah. So I got my own feedback in the recent years. Okay. So the question is, when we're stuck in this illusion of happiness, we don't grow. So would you rather get that feedback when you're 4 years old, 14 years old, 44 years old, or when you're 64 years old? Okay, so something to chew on. All right, so if something needs to be fixed, then you would wish that you had gotten feedback much, much earlier. So I'd like you to just take for a moment, okay, the feedback that you want to give to the people around you could potentially enter their life and have potentially lasting impact. And at the same time, what is something that you wish you had gotten feedback about, whether it was a few years ago, a few months ago, or a few days ago? Okay, so jot that down if you can reflect on it. Okay, and when you have the courage, go and ask for that feedback. All right? Okay, moving on. So now, what happens if we don't ask for feedback at the workplace, in life? What happens, huh? What is the consequences of not asking for feedback or not getting feedback? So like for me, my consequences is not growing, right? Okay, Grace, how about you?
Yeah. I think I have a similar experience as what you described, Marilyn.
Mhm.
I was too afraid to ask for feedback, and
Yeah.
as a result, I wasn't able to grow from it.
Yeah. And then you find that you wasted time, right?
Yes.
That all the opportunity with all the people who could have given you valuable information or even support. Yeah.
Yeah.
What a pity. And when did you realize that?
I realized that when I switched jobs.
Yes. Yeah. It's always like that, right? And
Yes.
what did you do in order to make the changes then?
Okay. So after that, I was extremely vocal. I mean, before I switched job, I was very mousy, yes, to a
Yeah.
point. I wasn't able to speak up. I was also scared about what people thought about me because
Yeah.
maybe my ego was very fragile.
Mm.
Yeah. So in my new role, what I told myself is that no matter how tough the situation can get, I need to ask for feedback, and also I will give my honest feedback about things.
Wonderful. And you managed to exercise that?
Yes, yes. But I have questions for you later. Yeah.
Oh, okay, wonderful. Yes. Okay, so you're gonna save them for later? That's
Yes.
good too. Thank you, Grace. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Yeah, okay. So let's see in the chat. Priya says correct, no personal growth. That's right. Estella says no improvement. Yeah. And in the end of the day, we're talking about the workplace, right? And you guys are in studying medicine, you're in the medical field. So what happens then? Who does it impact if there's no improvement in our work? Ha says, I never know how well I have done. Absolutely. So it's two-pronged, two-way. Okay, so without feedback, if we think about the workplace, right? Mistakes may go uncorrected. So the person who has done something wrong or who has done something that needs improvement may say, well, no one told me, ma. So no news is actually good news. Yeah, so they go on about doing their usual thing, not knowing that it has a severe impact. So that could be detrimental, right? Especially when the patient is concerned, when the customer is concerned. Now, what else could happen? Incorrect assumptions may be made. So imagine you've done a good job, right? You've done something well, a new procedure, you've done a certain calculation or a certain filing system that you've done that is much improved from your previous colleagues. And then, but the thing is, there was no good feedback coming back. So there is a potential impact on your morale because you're saying, I put in all these hard work over the years. The first project, okay. The second project, okay. The third project, still okay. But by the fourth, and by the time you hit your 10th project and you're getting tired, you'll say, how come, there's no feedback? They probably didn't think much of my efforts. So if this incorrect assumption is made, you as a person doing those good extra things, putting in that extra effort, will start to feel, I think I'm tired lah. It's not appreciated. So I think I'm just going to step back and just do business as usual. Yeah. So therefore, we actually miss the opportunity to do something better as a team, as a group, because we failed to recognize things that were done well. Okay. And then lastly is good behavior is not reinforced. So again, if good behavior has been done and it's not reinforced, the person will say, I probably didn't do that good a job anyway. They may think that my presentation, my assignment was so. So In future, I also put in so effort. Yeah. So unfortunately, when we don't give feedback, there are other repercussions. Okay, bearing in mind that we are in this business world. Business world, meaning to say we're looking at competition, we're looking at profitability, we're looking at opportunities to do things better than our competition. So if we don't give each other feedback, right, then we actually miss out or lose out as a whole. Yeah. Okay, so this is the importance of feedback. Now, remember that the purpose of feedback is actually, at the end of the day, to improve performance as a whole. So when we're at the workplace, we're giving each other feedback not to pinpoint faults. Yeah, we're helping the other person to grow. We're recognizing their achievements. We're helping them to develop, to see things from a different point of view. And therefore, it is actually a two-way conversation with the intention of providing support and also finding solutions instead of faults. Yeah. Okay. So as a group, we need to change the mindset that feedback is always about something wrong. Feedback is something I did wrong, you did wrong. No. Feedback, if we develop a culture of feedback within our organization, within our student population, right? Then it just means that we are used to getting feedback. And when we are used to getting feedback, when someone says, hey, Marilyn, I want to give you feedback, you don't go, right? You go, oh, okay, it's feedback time. Sure, let's talk about it. Isn't it so? Okay. So when we learn the skills later, I would highly encourage you to develop this culture around your community by starting with good feedback. Because imagine if on a weekly basis, you give 6 or 7 good feedback. And then one thing went wrong, so you give 1 feedback for improvement. That is how you develop a culture, because you're so used to getting feedback that when people say, I give you feedback, you're not afraid, because 7 of it will probably be good. Okay, so when the one area for improvement comes up, you go, oh, okay, I can weigh it out. It doesn't damage or bruise my ego because I've already received 7 good ones. And I know that next week I'll receive another 7 good ones. So therefore, when we create this culture, it becomes a norm. And I can tell you in corporate, this is not happening. People are too defensive. They've got their egos, they've got their barriers. And therefore, you always find departments fighting. Marketing blames sales, sales blame operations, operations blame finance, finance blame warehouse, warehouse blame, whoever, okay? And unfortunately, that's what happens. Okay, so remember that if you don't give feedback and if you don't clear it up, you will always feel that way about that person and that situation. Okay, so if you're the person supposed to give feedback, don't hold back. Find a good way to deliver that feedback, okay, because the situation will not change on its own. And furthermore, that person may also have an ill feeling towards you. And if you don't give that feedback, the wrong behavior will continue to occur, or the good behavior will stop occurring after that. Okay? Now, if the situation remains as unfavorable, what do you think would be the result of the relationship? Okay? What would happen to the dynamics? In general, even if you choose not to give feedback to that person, okay? So say someone you know has done something that needs rectification, right? And you feel already that it's not done well, you don't feel good about it, but you hold back your feedback. What's the result of this relationship? You already have a feeling towards that person, right? Like that person's not trying their best. It seems like they don't put a lot of effort into what they do. So if you hold back, that's what you're feeling towards them. So ultimately, what will happen to the dynamics? The dynamics will still be rather uncomfortable. So in general, it's still negative and it's dissatisfactory and unfulfilling. So at the end of the day, how does this come back to affect you? You will complain, right? You'll complain to other people, oh yeah, that person, I didn't put in effort. Or you could do the other thing, you keep it in. I don't say anything, but you get irritated, you get stressed. Or you may dislike that behavior, but you continue to smile. But behind that smile actually is a disapproval. Okay? Or you could be very passive aggressive, right? So you go along with things, but it irritates you. And worst of all, you don't enjoy the interaction and you avoid that person totally. So at the end of the day, nobody wins. Okay, so we're going to look at the how now. Okay, so when we look at the how, I also want you to think back to the feedback that you have been receiving in the past. How did it make you feel? Did it make you feel either the red or the blue? Did it make you feel attacked? Did it make you feel useless? Did it make you feel incompetent or ashamed? Okay, or on the other hand, feedback should make you feel excited. It should make you feel challenged. It should make you feel curious. Curious as in, I wonder how I can change this to make it better. I hope it makes you feel hungry. Like, hey, if that person can do it, how come I can't? Right? What are the steps I need to do to make it right? Or it should give you a feeling of peace. Hopefully later, maybe not at the time of feedback, but when you've mastered the feedback, then you can feel at peace. Okay, and that's the time that we really grow. Wouldn't it be nice where we have a situation where we continuously grow? Okay, so bear in mind that this is how we want to target our feedback, all right, which is to aim for the blue and not the red. Okay, so before we go into the model, I want to remind you that words have a powerful energy that can change lives. So when we're giving feedback, we need to be very conscious of how we're talking to people because it's two-way communication, right? All of us as humans, we have an engine, right? This is the foundation of how we operate. This engine helps us to receive input. And when we receive this input, we recode itself, right? We recode ourselves to interpret what we think was said. So if we interpret it wrongly, right, and our core engine is covered with these protective walls, which is ego, defense, self-esteem, means to say it's infiltrating our safe zone. Okay, so when we're giving feedback, we need to be very conscious that people have this defense and these protective walls. So I found this blog and I thought it was really interesting. That's why I put it here to share with you. And it says that in order to get our feedback through to the person, we need to get past two gates. So firstly is the gate of respect. So when giving feedback, do we put across this message to that person that no matter what the behavior was, we respect them, right? So I have feedback for you, but no matter what the feedback is about, first of all, I respect you as a person. Because if we can give them this feeling, they will not be so defensive. Yeah? Because most of the time when we give feedback and they feel that their walls are being torn down and they have no self-respect or you have no respect for them, that's when they become defensive. All right? The second wall or second gate that this blogger put was the gate of intention. Have we gone through this gate of intention by communicating what is our intention of our feedback? Why are we giving feedback for a start? You know, who gives me the right to give you feedback? Yeah, what is the feedback about? So firstly, remember that person, you must get through the gate of their respect, okay? And secondly, the gate of intention, which is, why are you giving me feedback in the first place? Do you have the right to give me feedback? Okay, so be very aware of how you are feeling yourself, but also how others are feeling, okay? Are you aware of how they're feeling? Yeah, is there something that they're hiding from you or not telling you, right? Whether it's their ego or something that they're defensive about. Is there a blind spot that you can see? Or when you give feedback, do you have a blind spot that you can't see, right? And is there something that is unknown, both of you not realizing, okay, when you communicate with each other? So by the way, this comes from the Johari window. Okay, it's a model for building trust. This is just for you to be aware when you give feedback. Okay, so when giving feedback, your mindset and your intentions need to be in the right place. So you need to be in the mindset of, I am here to help you. So it's not, I'm giving feedback because you did it wrong. Okay, you see the difference? I'm giving feedback because I saw you made a mistake. No, it is I'm giving feedback because I want to help you. I'm giving feedback because I see a better outcome that you're able to achieve. I'm giving you feedback because when you change the way you do things, you will get a better, people will be more receptive towards you. Okay, so at all times when you're giving feedback, remember that you're passing the gate of respect, the gate of intention. So, and we will practice that, yeah? What is your intention? So the tips would be, in order to do that, and because it's a two-way communication, you need to, number one, listen actively and listen deeply to what that person has to say, because they're going to defend their actions, right? So if you don't listen deeply, you would have missed that whole self-awareness thing, right? Or that hidden information that they didn't share with you. So just like when they say, I'm late today, right? So a lot of people, when you say, why are you late? They'll give reasons, okay? These reasons, are they good or are they bad reasons? What do you think? Give me a reaction in the chat or something. Ever accused someone of being late before or not? Okay, so normally when someone gives you reasons for being late, are they good reasons or are they bad reasons? What do you think? Give me a thumbs up for a good. If no thumbs up, means it's bad lah. Well, no thumbs up. That means all of you think that the reasons are bad. Yeah. Okay, let's see what's in the chat. To them, good. Absolutely. Yeah, correct. So I can tell you from a point of view as a communicator, every reason is good. Okay, even though you think that they are excuses, even though you think that it's, no, but to them, the reason is good. So they will say things like, yeah, my grandparent fell down. I was driving and then I stopped to help a motorist in an accident. I need to go to a government office because this is the only day that they're open, right? So to you, you may not accept the reasons, but to that person, the reasons are all good. All right. So let me tell you that the reasons are always good, because there's nobody is going to be so silly to give you a bad reason. All right. And that is why we need to listen actively and deeply, because we need to understand from their perspective what exactly happened before we judge them for being late. Okay. So this happens with all sorts of feedback. We need to understand first, right? When we want to give feedback, we want to make sure that we give them, or we offer them, some suggestions for improvement. Okay. Why do we also ask them for improvement? Is because we want them to own the solution. Because if they own the solution, they are more likely to make changes and to follow through with it. Okay. And lastly, feedback must be and relies on absolutely accurate observation and documentation. So we cannot challenge people, we cannot give feedback by attacking their personality, right? We cannot say you are careless, right? Or you are stupid, or you cannot also say things like, yesterday, Sally told Desmond, who told Peter, who told me, and that's how I know, right? Because then you have broken trust in the front. So if you're going to give feedback, feedback has to come from you and you alone. So it always starts with, I noticed. Okay, and when you put I noticed, we'll share the format with you later, it has to be on accurate observation with facts and figures. So it's not, you are lousy, that's why you always come late, right? That is not feedback. That is an accusation. Okay, because if we don't listen deeply, they will say something like, yeah, but my grandmother fell down. Yeah, but your grandmother always fall down, right? So you are already accusing people, and therefore the feedback is useless. Okay, so when we give feedback, it has to rely on accurate observation, and you say something like, I notice that this is the third Wednesday you have come in late. And by late, I mean 45 minutes past your clock-in time. Yeah? Then let me invite you to tell and share your reasons why. That is where we listen deeply to provide their perspective. Okay, so we'll be talking about this. These are just some upfront tips. Okay, so far, I'm just going to pause or take a 30-second pause. Any questions for the moment? Okay, no questions, then let's move on. All right. Okay, and when you're giving the feedback, remember this one thing: don't judge the success of your feedback by their immediate reaction. What I mean by that is you have good intention. You give that person feedback. And what happens is they give you a snarly face, right? Or they get upset, they walk off, or they don't talk to you for the next 3 weeks. Okay? Never judge the success of your feedback by their immediate reaction, because if you had the right intention to help them, sometimes they don't realize it at that point because they are being defensive, right? They may only realize that feedback 6 years later. Yeah? Okay? And then they'll say, oh my goodness, that's what Jing Xuan was trying to tell me 6 years ago. That's what Vanessa was trying to help me to improve, but at that time I was too defensive. So something to keep in mind so that you encourage yourself to continue the process of feedback, right? Because the last thing you want to do is you give feedback, right? And then you get a poor reaction, then you say, you see, I'm never going to give feedback again. That's not going to help you grow. Okay? All right.